We're on. We're going to do a quick audio check if anybody is live. Do we have some people that have joined us, Rob? We do. Can we try to get like a thumbs up if we're feeling good about the audio so far? Coming through clearly. We've upped our game. Rob has upped our game this year on the IT side of things. The lighting is improved. The sound quality is improved. I'm sure the beer is going to be top notch as well too. So we're going to have an exciting day. I'm going to assume that we're good. So we'll dive in. Welcome to the 2025 Iron Brewer Classic. Very excited for our second consecutive year to host this live with you so you can see exactly what goes on behind the scenes in the evaluation of these beers. And obviously, we want to give you as much feedback as possible. So we've got a very special guest here today that is going to help us do that. Before I get to your introduction, Jason, I'd just like to introduce Alicia, if any of you don't know her.
Hello, I'm Alicia.
Welcome. Alicia is our events coordinator for the club, somebody that's interested as well too in gaining some additional feedback, maybe one day becoming a BJCP judge.
Hopefully. Yeah, this is the first judging kick at the cat.
Amazing. Well, you have an amazing person to learn from today because we've got one of the, I guess, most tenured and experienced professional BJCP judges in the country joining us. And without stealing your thunder, Jason, I'll hand it over to you to tell any of those people that are joining us today that don't know you a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm Jason Foster, long-time member of the Edmonton Homebrewers Guild. Got to both cut my chops brewing in the guild and had both been humbled significantly when entering competitions and learned from those humbling score sheets to try and become a better brewer. And these days, I'm a beer writer and beer educator. I'm the beer columnist on CBC Radio here in town. And yeah, I'm a master level ranked BJCP judge. And yeah, so we're just going to kind of sit down and have some beer and talk about them a little bit.
Right. I want to go back to what you just said, though. What a lot of people don't realize is you're still an active homebrewer yourself as well, too, right?
Oh, yeah. No, in fact, I've got my weekend plan is to put the latest beer in the keg. So, yeah, no, I've been brewing now since 1991, and I'm still doing it. Those first kits from 1991, though, were the little cans from Superstore. Right. You know, that you have the corn sugar and dump it. They were awful. But yeah, so I'm still actively homebrewing. Can't wait for the snow to disappear so I can pull the big system out and get brewing again, another brew season going.
Okay, well, we need to try some of your beer sometime too. Flip the script a little bit.
Certainly did.
But that said, have you ever brewed with Special B? Because that's obviously the highlight ingredient that we're going to be focusing on today. So have you brewed with it?
I have. I have a number of times. Yeah, I really quite like it for my Belgian doubles and quadruples. Although I do find it can actually fit in quite nicely in lower percentages in some of the British styles. Because it adds some nice sort of notes to it. But that's kind of when I use it most of the time, is in those that's kind of traditionally when you use Special B as those kind of situations.
Okay. So when we are focusing or looking for Special B as our really star or showcase ingredient, what are you going to be looking for today in the beers in terms of the characteristics, the aromas, the flavors, any other kind of, I guess, Special B-centric items that are important to you?
Yeah, I think when I'm looking for Special B, the first thing I'm looking for is a really sort of rich caramel, almost a burnt toffee kind of note to it, right? Burnt without that astringency, without that harshness, right? Mm-hmm. That's kind of the first level. Like it's like if that's not there, you're not getting the Special B. But then after that, I want to be looking for some of the more darker dried fruit kind of notes to it, right? So I kind of think kind of looking for plum or maybe some cherry, those kinds of notes as a bit of an accent. And you might, I find sometimes you can even allow a little, just a hint of roastiness, just the hintest, right? Like not like a, almost like a chocolate malt without that burnt character. And so a little bit of chocolatey kind of note can sometimes come through. So that's more kind of if you're really kind of getting in some of the subtle flavors, and that'll depend on what else you've made, what you've built around it in terms of the beer. But those are the key things I'd be looking for.
Okay, nice. Well, we've got the beer here. Just before we dive in, we're going to swap this one out so we can keep the glasses consistent too.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
But let's talk about the format today. So a reminder to everybody that thank you to our teleprompter, Rob, who is sitting directly behind the camera. And first and foremost, I do want to give him a huge shout out for the preparation and getting everything organized today. So Rob, your thumb is there next to the beer. We hope you like the presentation today and the close-up on the beer. I'm excited to see what that looks like. But let's talk about the format today. So typically in a BJCP certified competition, there would be a 50-point scaling system and a detailed score sheet that would go through things like the aromatics of the beer, the flavor, the mouthfeel, the overall impression, etc. We're not going to get into that much detail today, just in the interest of time. But we are going to treat it more of like a best of show type format. So we will serve the beer, obviously, and then we'll have a dialogue on it. Alicia and I are really here as a supporting cast today because ultimately Jason is going to be the one that is determining our winners, and we're along for the ride a little bit as well too. But
well, you guys know, I'm open to having your senses of this. That's why you never have one judge. That's why we always have a panel of 2-3 judges, because you always make sure that you're balancing off certain blind spots or certain preferences. It's always good to have more than one judge. So I'll be keeping an eye on both of you in terms of what your thoughts and impressions are.
switch Jason.
So he's gonna.
Oh, got some technical issues going on.
Yeah, because we just didn't want to mix up the glasses, right?
Okay.
So you can just figure that out quickly, momentarily. Okay, so I think we went through our prep. We're just refilling that beer very quickly. First beer up, we've got an ESB-ish, according to the brewer. So we do have some notes on this one, Jason. When mashing in beer that would never have Special B, and then remembering Iron Brewer and thinking, what's the worst that could happen? It's more of a poem, I think.
That is fantastic.
I know. I am loving some of the brewers' comments on some of these things.
Perfect.
That's great. Oh, perfect.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so we're ready to start. So, Jason, what are you looking for to start when you're evaluating a beer?
Well, yeah. So the first thing I'm doing is looking at it, right? So just a bit of a slight haze, but for homebrew, it's actually pretty clear. It's about the right color, right, for an ESB. It's in that zone. Not seeing much head, but that could have just been maybe because mine got double poured. And so then I smell it. Just get a nice sense of that initial. That gives me my first initial sense of what I'm looking at. Right. So it's relatively subdued. It's a bit undercarbonated. Again, that could be because mine got poured twice, and so I acknowledge that. But I'm getting a fairly subdued aroma, but I am getting some nice little, some light caramel notes. I get a touch of nuttiness. And then just a little bit of sort of generic fruit at this point. Well, maybe not. So I don't think every time we do a beer, I'm going to be the first one to talk. But this one, I'm happy to lead this time.
We're going to warm up as we go too. We've done
Yeah.
this before, and by like the double-digit beers, that's when we're all like having the time of our lives too, right? So,
well, I think what happens here is the very first thing I'm getting is the very first front sip. I'm getting a little bit of a nuttiness, which is quite nice and pleasant for an English style beer. Then I start picking up some of the Special B. Right, again, that sort of almost burnt toffee kind of note, kind of in middle palate. If anything, I think it lingers a little too much. Like I find that the finish is just a little too much burnt character to it, especially for an ESB. Not getting quite enough bitterness that I'd be looking for. I mean, I know it's an ESB-ish, so maybe that isn't the biggest criticism in the world.
how do you feel about the bitterness of the beer?
Yeah, it's not quite
Feel like
there.
that's okay.
Yeah, and then I think mostly it's not because I think the hopping rate might be okay. I think it's that sort of that kind of burnt kind of character is kind of pushing through to the end a little too far, and so as a result, not letting that hops kind of come up and shine the way I think I would want it to. So the linger has as especially after the second sip, I'm getting a little bit more of that kind of sort of earthy floral bitterness kind of on the back of my tongue. But it got overpowered at first by that first almost burnt kind of character to it. So the balance overall in the beer isn't bad, except I think probably whoever the brewer was, thinking the worst that can happen. I think what happened is you just knocked it out of balance. I think probably without B, you might have yourself, without the special B, you might have yourself a decent special bitter, extra special bitter, depending, what the final finish would feel like. Yeah, so I think it just knocked it out of the beer itself out of balance a little bit. It's not quite enough holding up that special B, and so I think if anything, it kind of some of the wrong qualities of the special B come through. I think. Okay, your thoughts?
Interesting.
There, go for it.
No, I think, up front on the nose, I think I got a more of a dark fruit-ish smell. And so for me, it didn't quite, I was expecting it to, I guess, be sweeter on the tongue when not so bitter. So
I agree. That was my first impression too. It was definitely like a yeast forward, that like English style fruit ester coming out, which I enjoy. But it does subdue like those caramel notes, right? That we're really looking to showcase. And on the palate, like same thing. It's just subdued to your point, right? Like I'm getting a strong hop presence, obviously, from the bitterness, and that's kind of again just masking maybe some of that special B character that we'd really like to see. But really good beer. I'm enjoying.
I mean, you need to say cleanly brewed. I mean, I'm not getting any flaws out of it. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's a really well-made beer. I think really what I would just suggest is the ESB, or sorry, the Special B. I keep calling it ESB. Special B just kind of didn't blend in properly enough, and so it brings out the wrong qualities of the Special B, and not some of those nice, softer, rounder, richer notes that it can impart. And it kind of gave us more of that sort of kind of almost that kind of bit of roasty burnt end. Right?
Okay. Well, thank you to the brewer. We're off to a good start. Really enjoyable beer. Let's move on to the next one. We've got another ESB. This one is identifying strongly as an ESB, though. It's not just ESB-ish.
Although then you read the optional notes, and
Yeah, maybe we should get to that. Okay, optional notes on this one. American style ESB, Amarillo hops, because I ran out. I like that.
classic homebrew, right? Classic homebrewer note, right? It's like went to brew day, was in the middle of brewing, went, I don't have enough hops. Okay, what can I use? I've had that happen to me so many times, I cannot tell you.
Yep.
So fair enough. Totally, I'm gonna go for that. Yeah.
All right. Aesthetically, maybe just a little lighter than the last one, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Color, and we do have some head
Still
retention
not.
on
I
this.
don't think it's out of range for an ESB though. At this point, still it's kind of on the lighter end of it, but I don't think I would consider that. I wouldn't ding it marks. But that's really great clarity, though. I gotta say, really nice clarity.
Yep.
Again, not getting a ton of head. Drops away.
All right, I'll dive into this one. I haven't tasted it yet, but aromatics, two very different beers, obviously, right? I'm getting those prominent caramel notes up front, but I'm also getting a dank feature from the hops that is quite distinctive, actually. I'd say it's almost probably like the dominant for me. Like I got the caramel first, but then that dankness is kind of like right there immediately. But I don't know, how do the two of you feel?
on the nose, I got more of a sweet wheat fragrance, but I would agree with the taste. It a little like a fern characteristic, not quite super dank, but something very described.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think what's happening here is the hops is just conflicting. It's just with that sort of, you do get some caramel note out of that. I'm getting a little bit of dark fruit character, but then there's that dank kind of almost sort of almost musty kind of hop character to it. I'm also just picking up a tiny bit in the background, a tiny bit of a medicinal phenolic, which makes me a little. It's not major, but I do note it. It kind of hangs around on the roof of my mouth as kind of a bit of a phenol. As I say, it's quite subtle. So I don't think so. What I would just suggest to the brewer is have a party, drink it up soon, because I suspect that phenol is going to grow over the coming weeks, and so you might want to sort of get it while it's still nice and fresh.
Yeah, I'm noticing mine is blowing off a little bit too. Like, it's always fun. Like, and that's why I prefer a real glass when we do these
Yeah, oh,
things,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because that beer, from the time you pour it to halfway the end of a pint, like it can change pretty dramatically,
Totally.
right? So I'm seeing that already. On the palate, I'm getting quite a bit of butterscotch. Anybody else?
Yeah, I guess I didn't necessarily identify that as an issue because it's not really coming away as a slick diced Seedle to me. It's more of a butterscotch,
Right.
which I would if I'm sort of thinking about an ESB, I'd be like butterscotch is perfectly natural in there, and it could be that that's how the Special B is presenting itself in the various combinations of other things. We obviously don't know what else they put in there in terms of their malt bill. But that would be one of the things I would think about is that could be that butterscotch, could be the presentation of the Special B in a bit of an odd way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you feeling like we've got the appropriate level of bitterness for an ESB on this?
I think it's just the wrong kind of hop character.
Okay.
If I'm judging it as an ESB, acknowledging that the brewers totally acknowledged that they threw Amarillo in there. So I think the bitterness level is right. I just think it's just got the wrong character to it. And so if I'm judging it as an ESB,
Okay. How about from a Special B standpoint?
I think it's not quite enough there.
Okay.
I think the hopping kind of blows it out, and so it's not presenting in the way that I think it had the potential to. And yeah, so I just think it's not present the qualities of that Special B isn't coming through for me. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, again, the aromatics is probably where I noticed it most. But yeah, again, just kind of masking in some of the other ingredients. Good beer, again, enjoying it. But I wouldn't necessarily say Special B is the star, but that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be how I would frame it. Right?
Yep.
It's kind of there. You can kind of tell that there's something in Special B-esque in it, but I wouldn't if you didn't tell me that this had Special B in it, I'm not sure I would go there. Like, I'm not sure I'd go, oh yeah, there's Special B in here. I'm not sure I would do that.
Right.
So that tells us that it's not quite presenting as forcefully as it could.
Okay, closing remarks?
Any thoughts?
I concur. It's like, no.
Perfect.
All right.
It is definitely drinkable though.
Thank
Thank you so much.
By the way, we've got our glorious president here serving double duties as our head steward today. Say hello to the people, Sean.
Hello.
Thank you.
And by the way, if you haven't seen this trophy before, I should have taken a moment to spotlight it, but this is the Iron Brewer trophy right here. So the winner today is going to get their name engraved on it, unless it's Rob. We might just Sharpie it in instead. But anybody know the story on how this thing got made? Rob? No? I'm sure somebody that is watching today might have that for us. And
No
if you
doubt.
do have the answer on how this was crafted, it is incredibly unique, and you probably can't see all the twists and turns from where you are, but somebody went to great efforts to make a really cool trophy. So, and it's heavy. Thing's like,
Substantial.
yeah, like 15 plus pounds.
So does the winner get to keep it in their home?
They do.
Okay.
Till next year.
Put it on
Yeah.
the mantelpiece. So that's
Yeah.
gives you motivation to try and win. All right.
Exactly. Okay. We are up to beer number 3. This is an amber ale. They specified 5.7% ABV, bourbon-soaked pecans, and dark maple syrup additions. Wow.
Interesting.
Okay. There's a lot going on there.
Mm.
All right.
Not quite as clear as our last beer for clarity. A
Fairly
little bit
hazy.
of haze.
Fairly hazy. But
Ooh, wow, that is
Oh, gosh.
delicious in terms of aromatics. Wow, I really like the smell.
yeah, I get candied pecans. You know, like that's what this comes through for me right off the top. Yeah.
Definitely that I can smell the maple syrup. It's almost a banana-y sweetness. That's a word.
Nice, nice carbonation on this one. I really like the carbonation level. It's formed a nice, tight, dense, sort of beige head. That's really quite nice.
Very clean taste. I guess I was expecting maybe like the aromatics are very intense, like
They are.
really welcoming. The taste is it doesn't have the same intensity, right? It's much cleaner.
It's a lot smoother, I think, than I would expect from the description that was there. Like I would almost expect like a harsh taste because of the bourbon, but
The bourbon's present though.
it is.
I can totally tell it's there. It's interesting how the pecans come through more in the aroma than in the flavor for me. I was expecting a little more nuttiness in the flavor profile than I think we have. And definitely, the syrup's there, so it's kind of, it runs in not too heavily and not overpoweringly, but it's totally there. You can tell it's sweetened up the body a little bit. So obviously there is some residual sugar still there from the maple syrup. Yeah, I really agree. Really smooth, like really surprisingly smooth.
I was surprised by like the body, the mouthfeel of this. I was expecting something like really heavy and lingering, but it's the opposite. It's actually like very dry and
It's not overly sweet.
pleasant to drink.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I would argue, it's got a fuller body than the first two that we've had, but that would be natural given what they've done with it. So, but I actually quite appreciate the balance between the different ingredients that they've kind of put through here. Again, quite clean. I'm not tasting any kind of flaws that sort of throw me off. I think the one critique of it is, I think there's enough else going on that I feel like the Special B takes a backseat. Right? Like I'm not like it's offering kind of some body, a bit of a richness. It's kind of contributing to that richness in the beer. But I know I don't get I don't get really sort of these strong dark fruits. I don't get that sort of rich, almost burnt toffee kind of note to it. Really, like that. So I feel like it's become a little too subtle because there's so many other layers of things going on. Since this is the Iron Brewer, and we have to take that into consideration, right? I think.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'll applaud the creativity, and I love this beer. I'll be open about it. Like this is something I drink all day.
It's really good. It would be great with like a little ice cream, one of the little tiny ones. in the summer.
I get that.
Yeah, I mean the aromatics are just so welcoming to come back to too, right? But I do get a lot of caramel on that. Like you said, the pecans or the nuttiness are probably a little bit more distinctive for you.
Yeah, I get the caramel more in the note in the aroma.
Yeah.
It's just not coming through in the flavor as much.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's hard to know that. See, the caramel's dancing with the maple syrup a bit, and so it's kind of hard to know where does the maple syrup end, and then some of that sort of richer caramel kind of come in.
Yep.
And that's I think that's one of the issues is some of that perception that we're getting of sugary sweetness coming from the syrup, or is that coming from the Special B? It's kind of hard to tell.
Not much to critique on this one, I feel like. I mean,
Yeah, and only then, I guess the question for us as the judges is to say, okay, this beer's got hits a lot of the marks, but is it showing the Special B enough to really kind of elevate it in the field? Right?
Yep.
So probably at this point, though, it's one that we kind of hold in the waiting zone to
Yeah.
see what else emerges.
we'll put a little star beside it, right? Might be tasting that one again near the end.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well done, whoever that brewer was. Really good.
That's fantastic.
All right, next up we're gonna go off the path a little bit on this one, I'd say. This one stands out as being probably a little bit of an outlier in terms of styles, in terms of the rest of the 18 entries. We have an experimental West Coast Pale Ale.
Unfortunately, they're not telling us what makes it experimental. That's the thing.
Right, and we don't know, so we know very little about the beer. That'll make it.
Just in a beer competition tip, if you're entering one of those more experimental specialty styles, give some give some notes about what, because the judges are going to say, well, what makes this experimental? They're going to want that information. So just a bit of a tip, just in terms of if you're going to do something like experimental West Coast Pale Ale, tell us why it's experimental. What were you aiming for?
Right.
So that the judges don't have to be guessing and they can go, okay, I'm looking for them now. Now I know what I'm looking for. Right.
I think that's the key too, is highlight. And you've got, typically, if you're entering this into a formal beer competition, you got a very small section to enter in your notes. So you can't write an essay, a lot of details. It's like key words essentially. But again, highlighting what you were looking to accomplish, I think, and what you want the judges to experience as well too. I find helps a lot in these categories. But how are we looking so far? Nice color on this.
Again, good clarity. Yeah, perfect color on it, I think, for pale ale.
Yep.
I gotta say, I'm really getting early going here. I'm impressed at the ability of the brewers to create nice, clear beer, right? Whether they're using finings or other, or they're just giving it the time it needs to kind of settle out. Anyway, kudos to them.
So obviously West Coast styles are always close to my heart. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm trying to pick the hop too. Are you at that stage where you can recognize a lot of the hops that are commonly used now?
To be honest, I try not to, because I just think it's a fool's game. Right? Because, unless they've only added one hop, right? Most brewers will add 2 or 3 different varieties, and so it's then more how those hops interact. And so I actually have never spent a lot of energy trying to say, oh yeah, this is. I mean, some are more obvious than others. Right? Citra is pretty easy to sort of pick out, right? I use it a lot, so I'm a bit, the sort of the Fuggles kind of family I can pick out really well because I brew with it well, but I brew with it a lot. But I generally try not to, right? Just because I think it's a bit of a fool's game. So this is where I think I would have liked to know what the experiment was.
There's like tartness on the palate. Are you getting that?
I get a bit of tartness, but what I'm getting first is, I'm trying to figure out what my adjective is sort of musty cellar, but not in an oxidation kind of way. Okay, there's something. It feels like almost like early stage Brett.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Like before it hits that full horse blanket. Instead, it's just kind of adding this must. For me, it's like cellar. It's like I've just walked into a root cellar, and then on top of that, I get kind of the sharp sort of American style hops. Right, I get a little bit of pininess out of it. But it's that first cellar character that's throwing me off a touch. I'm trying to figure out, and that's why the information would be helpful, because I can't figure out, is this an infection that's presenting itself in this way, or did they add something that is bringing out this characteristic? Like if I knew there was Brett in here, I go, oh yeah, okay, all right, you got it, right? But because I don't know what's in there, I'm finding my brain is trying to grasp what's happening in this beer, and so I'm not sure, but something doesn't feel quite right to me, and it's getting in the way of kind of that nice sort of crystally kind of pale ale malt bill that you kind of wanted to look for. And again, I have to say, I don't know, I'm not getting a ton of Special B character out of it, and again, it might just be because there's something else going on underneath. I don't know what.
For me, I think initially when I took the first initial sip, it is very reminiscent of what I would expect a West Coast to be, that sort of dank hoppiness. And so I think I expected from the Special B to have a little bit more of the burnt nut or burnt caramel type flavor, and I'm not necessarily picking that up, but I am picking up more of what I would expect out of a true West Coast.
Well, that's the thing too, right? Is like the hops are going to be so dominant on a West Coast style, right? So you really got to look for those malt undertones, and they can be hard to find. I think like the more this warms up, the more I work it around a little bit. It's like, yeah, I can start to get there. But yeah, the mouthfeel, the palate is what's really intriguing to me, right? This is where it'd be nice to know a little bit more about.
Because they said it's experimental, that means it tells me, okay, there's something happening, right? But if you think about a classic Sierra Nevada, or rest in peace Full Moon, right? The malt bill is just so much cleaner and just so much. Here I am, just as the backdrop, right? I'm present, but I'm there, and then you can get your nice hops, right? You can get your citrusy or your piney hops, and it's almost like whatever's happening in that body is trying to take center stage.
Right.
Which again, depending on what they did with it, might be appropriate. But in this, because I don't know, it just feels distracting to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can agree. Like, would like to know more about this beer, but in terms of like Special B being, a highlight ingredient, not really there.
Not
right?
there. Yeah. And I don't think they nail it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Temperature-wise, I think you're probably good to pull everything out too, if there is anything still in the fridge.
That we can do.
Thank you.
I love these descriptions though. The folks are creative.
Should have.
Well, there's just a nice honesty to it. It's like, okay, well, it's called like this. This new one coming up is being called a London Brown-ish. So again, not sure what the ish is, but obviously the brewer finished it, tasted it, and went, well, it's kind of like a London Brown.
Okay. This is beer number 5, everybody. London Brownish. No brewer comments. Okay.
It's interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Looks lighter than yours for some reason, but okay, maybe it's just where I'm sitting. My instinct is almost to sort of say that it's a little light for a London Brown, but again, I wouldn't, you'd lose a point for me on that. That wouldn't be too significant.
Nice richness on the aromas. Kind of reminds me again of that second beer with the richness and intensity. Almost like a root beer character on it.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. That's where I'm kind of going. It's
Yeah.
kind of almost got that kind of, which again, don't know exactly what that's coming from, but root beer. Oh yeah, I'm getting a bit of burnt toffee in the aroma. I think I kind of get what the brewer's saying. It leans into being a London Brown, but then it's just not quite fully landing in that zone. Mm-hmm. If anything, I get this. There's a nuttiness in the flavor that reminds me of a Northern Brown. There's a kind of like if you think about Newcastle, and there's that rich nuttiness in a Newcastle Brown. I get some elements of that. I'm getting some rich caramel. I'm getting some sort of nice sort of dried fruit character. It's not really, kind of coming across for me more as a raisin than a plum or anything like that. But that's all right. And that's just what's coming up for me. I don't know. What about you?
Oh gosh. I agree. I can smell and kind of taste like a raisin characteristic. And I am getting the hints of the sort of root beer. I'm not sure if it's like more of like the sassafras type side of root beer or if it's a true root, but love the fragrance off of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, aromatics are really enjoyable again on this one. Again, a really well executed beer all around. Flavor wise, for me, again, I guess kind of similar to the amber that we had for number 3, where it the intensity of the flavors isn't quite at where the aromatics were, but it's still very enjoyable. I think it's got a little bit more flavor actually than that third beer. The finish I kind of like too. It's quite dry for me, like dry and lingering, so very clean. But
Yeah, which is another reason why I think it leans towards kind of like a Northern Brown, because it has that. It dries out a little bit more than I would expect a London Brown to. I mean, I'm not even sure if London Brown is even in the BJCP guidelines anymore. I don't think it is. But I think it's been pushed to historical standards, I think. Yeah. That doesn't matter. I feel like some of that root beer might be coming. I almost get a treacle kind of character to it. That might be the root beer note that we're finding.
Okay.
It just kind of has that, because treacle has that kind of, like it's a little more than a brown sugar or a molasses. It's kind of got a little bit more of an earthy flavor profile to it than a molasses does. So anyway, that would be one possibility. But again, not getting a ton of Special B out of it. I mean, getting some characteristics like that caramel, that toffee, but present, but not really shining.
okay,
Yeah.
fair. Really good job to the brewer again.
Yeah.
Fantastic beer.
Again, cleanly brewed, not picking up any Any off flavor issues at all?
It's actually quite lovely.
So now the next, four British brown ales. So I feel like we're moving into that traditional zone of Special B, where you'd want to start using it in not too high a proportion, but where you could actually add some extra. It'll give some complexity to the beer.
Thank you.
So now we're at number 6 now, I guess, eh?
Number 6, British Brown. Yeah, pretty similar looking to the last beer, actually.
Yeah.
Not quite the
A
same.
little
quality
lighter even
flavors.
maybe, but yeah, again. But I think now that we're talking just kind of British brown, totally
Yeah.
I think in its own.
So it's got really nice head retention. Beer number 6, British Brown.
I quite like the aroma. And it really, I think this is the first one that really, I think, gives me a Special B aroma, right? Where it's got some nice rounded caramels, just a hint of like toasty character. I get some dark fruit out of it. Maybe cherry. So, yeah, I think as I sense it, maybe more in the flavor, but I get some cherry as well, which is nice.
I can get there too, yeah.
I'm worried about the sharpness at the end of the palate, at the end of this sip. It's almost, for me, it's starting to edge almost into a bit of a tartness. Like it finishes a touch tart, which I'm wondering. I've seen at times, especially some of my darker beer, when they start to go in terms of oxidation, they start to develop a little bit of this kind of flavor. Like, so it's not the classic cardboard, wet paper kind of oxidation. It's more that it starts to, the tongue starts to get a sharpness to it. The back of the tongue gets a sharpness to it. I'm picking that up in this one. So, brewer, you could take that for what it is. You know better than I do how old it is, what may have happened in terms of packaging, etc. But there's something going on there in the back end for me that I can't ignore.
Okay. And you're confident that, you're steering towards the oxidation rather than some sort of bittering technique that was used?
Yeah, no, because it doesn't feel hop derived. It feels, I mean, there is some nice bitterness that's just at the very end, not too much. Obviously, you don't want too much in a British brown. I can get that kind of. See, what's happening is I get the hot bitterness along the roof of my mouth as it's going back.
Yep.
But then on the back end of my tongue is where I'm getting this sharpness, and for me, that at least in my palate, that's an indication for me of either tartness. So either it doesn't seem sour on the front. So that's why I go to oxidation. It doesn't seem sour, but there's a tartness-like sharpness to it. That's, I think, my gut tells me in another month will be more pronounced.
Okay.
I'm like,
Go ahead.
I think in addition to the nutty fruit fragrance, I also like on the first, I smelled, I guess what I can equate to sort of like a condensed milk, like a sweet condensed milk. Just very, but I would agree with the like that. After I took a sip, that there was a sharpness at the end.
Well, I'll give almost full points for the aromatics.
Oh,
for
yeah,
this beer,
100%.
right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, dead on aroma.
Dead on, and yeah, just the palate wise, it's curious to me. Not bad by any means. Still, like I would actually consider very good. But yeah, I taste what you're sharing as well too. So
Yeah, so I just said to the brewer, sort of, kind of explore what that was. Maybe it didn't have that flavor a couple weeks ago. Like, try it now. See if it tastes different to you than when you packaged it. I don't know. Again, I don't know when you packaged it, but yeah, just kind of just sniff around and try and see if there might be something in there you want to pay attention to next time you brew it. But otherwise, I think the recipe itself seems quite lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really like the nose on that one.
Thank you. Okay, we're still on the British brown ale train, but we got some notes on this. I'm excited about the notes actually.
Yeah,
Kind
the
of-
notes are
make it
good.
fun.
yeah. But this one's just pretty standard.
It's all right. We have notes.
It's exactly what it says.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty standard.
Pretty standard, 4.9% ABV, Nottingham yeast, 3.5% Special B. Okay, so interesting. They've actually told us the ingredients, which can work for you, can work against you sometimes.
Totally can work for you. But what I'm going to do, just in the interest of, because we're kind of having the folk watching, is that this is actually a nice test about whether 3.5% is enough to be able to bring out Special B characters, or if it's just something that's going to linger in the background.
Right.
So this will be an interesting test to see whether making the decision to only add about 3.5% is sufficient to actually bring that out in the way you want it to. So it'll be a good test.
All right, we got nice clarity on this one, some decent head retention again.
Yeah, once again, I'm really, really impressed with the level of clarity in these beers.
Change of pace from the last beer.
Yeah. I'm getting a less sweet, I guess, fragrance off the
Well, yeah, it just doesn't quite have that, like, those sweet, like, dominant caramel undertones, right? Like,
I get more of a nuttiness.
yeah.
And I get more of the yeast-derived fruity esters, right? Which I often describe that as a sort of generic fruitiness. So like often, the fruity esters developed from sort of English yeasts gives you the perception of fruitiness without the capacity to actually identify what fruit am I talking about here, right? And that's kind of what I'm getting in both the aroma and the flavor. Really, I quite enjoy the flavor of the beer. It's
Yep.
really lovely. It's a really gentle, easy to drink. Feels not quite full enough for a brown ale. Like if anything, if you were to just put this in front of me and say, "What is it?" It's very distinctly British. I'd put it down as almost an ordinary bitter.
Okay.
Still, obviously, alcohol's a little too high for it, but like just in terms of the balance of the beer and the flavor profile, it feels like it's more like that than it is a brown ale to me. But again, really lovely flavors. I think my take on this is that this is a suggestion that maybe 3.5% isn't enough to really bring out the Special B. I think what it's doing is it's adding just a layer of complexity. Like I think that's what it's giving at this level. And so that's a good lesson in terms of thinking of recipe design.
Yep.
That at around 3.5% in a British style beer, it's just going to give you a little bit of pushing up the bottom a bit to kind of give you a little bit of a rounded complexity. And I think that's what it's doing without actually imparting Special B characteristics to it. So that's a good lesson for if you're thinking about your recipe design for your English browns and your porters and the like. Yeah.
Alicia.
I actually really enjoy this one. I think, well, I mean, I enjoy all beer, but even the yucky ones.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
Yeah.
But I'm super actually impressed with the clarity that the folks are bringing with it. And there was nothing, for me, there was nothing off-putting or slightly weird. It's supposed to be Iron Brewer, so we're supposed to have a little bit of weird ingredients, but I'm not necessarily getting anything as a weird ingredient.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, it's a weird critique to have. All right, it's just too clean. It's just too straightforward. It's too well. They even said it's pretty standard. It is. It's pretty standard, but in a lovely way.
Absolutely.
But what happens is in a competition like this, it just kind of gets lost in the shuffle. I think because it's too straightforward. We get some nice flavors out of it, but nothing that makes you go, "Whoa, look at that."
Yep.
Yeah.
Nope. I agree with everything you just said. Really enjoy the beer.
Yeah.
I'd say like the yeast is really probably the star for me, but there are some pretty pleasant like peanut and nut
Yeah.
aromatics and flavor there as well too. So well-made beer, no doubt about it. But yeah, again, 3.5% Special B. It just wasn't prominent enough for the category, right? But
Yeah, that's why I say good lesson for if you want to make a regular beer that isn't for Iron Brewer. 3.5% might be the sweet spot.
yeah, this reminds me of Hammer's. What they called it, like the peanut butter or peanut butter malt,
interesting.
right? Remember that?
Oh,
We did an Iron Brewer probably 4 or 5 years ago, and the special ingredient was Hammer's specialty, like peanut butter style malt,
Oh, wow.
and that reminds me of it. So I wonder if that actually might be in there.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah,
All right.
well-made beer. Thank you. We are on to. I gotta keep this. We're making pretty good progress. I
Yeah,
feel
almost
like,
halfway
right?
there.
We're cruising.
Beer number 8, right? Is what I've got.
Yep.
That is
Beer number 8.
Thank you.
Another British Brown. We've got 2 more British Browns to go. This one looks like it's got maybe just a hint more color to it. Slightly darker.
Does seem a bit darker.
All right. Yeah, look at the clarity though. Like we.
See, but that's more what I'm looking for, right? Like I think the first couple I felt like were a tad light for the style.
Okay.
This is kind of more in the zone that I'm looking for.
Okay.
It's just that little bit of extra brown, right? Because the other ones were more kind of like a dark copper. This starts to bring in an actual sort of ruddy brown kind of character to it. So this is actually, I think, closer to style in terms of the color. Right? Again, pretty decent. Touch of haze there, but not too much. Nothing I'd be worried about in a home brew. If I were looking at my own and it was that, I'd be like, yeah, okay, that's all right, I'll take it.
Big intensity on this one as well too.
Yeah, really, really big aroma.
I'm almost getting like the dark fruit, but I don't know, some undertones of like red licorice almost.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
How's our audience doing?
Great. They like the sound. You can even hear them smelling.
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
Will we get nice and close on this one? High quality this year. Spared no expense. But in all seriousness, this one is worth taking the time to dive the nose in because yeah, it's very intense in a good way.
Thoughts?
Another very well made beer to start, no doubt about that. Love the aromatics. I would say like we're into that sweeter, into those sweeter caramelly notes for sure. But I see what you said about like the red licorice note. Maybe that is the like the red fruit character coming out of the Special B. Maybe the yeast. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's possible.
I think this is really clean, really nice, soft, rounded, rich caramels in there. I really like the fruitiness in it. I think and I get what you're saying about red licorice. I kind of really can get that, but I think it actually really works. Like it's not in that not in that sort of sicky candy kind of way. It's more just in there's a fruitiness to it, which I'm picking up. It's just hints of cherry, even a little bit of berry. I actually might, switching to the Special B, I think they've done a really nice job here. Like I feel like I'm getting the things that I'm looking for in a Special B. Rich, rounded caramels. I'm not really getting kind of the burnt characteristics, but you wouldn't want it in this style, I don't think. But again, the rich fruitiness, I feel like it's adding that robustness to the body. that I would want, that I'm expecting the Special B would do. So I actually think they've really done a great job with the beer. It's a really good tasting beer, and I feel like I certainly want this one waiting in the wings. I think because even though we're about halfway through, I feel like this one's certainly in that zone of someone to go back and take another shot at.
Yeah, well, what stands out too for me, because we've had a lot of really like great smelling beers, the aromatics have been really strong, but this one, like that translates into like the body as well too, into the flavors, and like it lasts a very long time, right? Like that amber that we had early on was very good, but again, compared to the aromatics, it just seemed like it didn't kind of match to the intensity that it was at. So this one, I feel like is just really balanced between the two, and you taste it for it's a nice, long, pleasant, lingering finish on it as well too. So good quality ingredients, great fermentation, a lot to like.
Yep.
Really enjoyed it.
Well done.
Last of our British Browns now, right?
I believe.
We're on number 9 now.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I lost focus. These are the spent ones. You never know that. Those were filled up. Okay. All right. Okay. I noticed that Sean likes to pour my glass more full than yours. I think it's
Maybe he knows. Maybe he knows you. Yeah, maybe he knows you. I don't know.
This is my house.
Maybe he's
Yeah, you don't have to go anywhere after this.
Yeah, house rules. Yeah. Saturday afternoon. I can't think of a better way to spend it personally.
That is actually accurate.
So
Especially
this is our
with all
first
the
beer
snow we
that
had
clarity-wise.
Yep, some clarity issues here. I mean, if not knowing otherwise, I'd think, oh, that's the end of the keg, right? But it's so some clarity issues there. But you can sort of see the color is in zone, and you kind of cut through the haze there a little bit. You're kind of dealing with the right color profile, especially when you kind of see the end of the glass like that. It's often what I do when it's hazy is kind of get a thinner veneer of it, and then that kind of gives you a sense of the color.
Yeah. And as always with Iron Brewer, you get some last-minute brews, right, where people want to make sure that they get something in.
Yep,
so,
may just not settled out enough yet.
right.
This is the most chocolate notes of the
Yeah, I was gonna say there's
lots
chocolate.
of chocolate in here.
That was a very deep inhale. If you heard it, that was not from us. That was Rob all the way 6 feet away. Well, he's getting in deep on this one. I'm having a hard time getting past the milk chocolate. Like the milk chocolate is nice, but I'm just like,
Well, what gets me past the chocolate is the tannins.
okay, I haven't tasted it yet. But
Yeah, I mean, there's some, and what really I think it follows through on the hypothesis that you may have tossed out there that this may have not had enough time to condition after primary fermentation, because I'm just getting there's a grittiness in the body. Right? Okay, you can feel it on your tongue. That's why I call it tannins, because it kind of coats my tongue. But it also reminds me of when I'm pulling off a sample, mid ferment or after most of the active fermentation has died out, right? And I'm just trying to see, okay, where am I at? Expecting to get that kind of gritty, that's what this is tasting like to me. Is it's just it kind of maybe just got pulled off too early.
okay.
Yeah. In terms of flavors, though, because that's one of the things with judging, right? You got to get past the flaw and past the thing that, and I think, as I said, lots of chocolate here. This is really chocolate forward. Not some fruitiness into it. I'm also just kind of getting a little bit of a chestnut kind of character out of it as well. But yeah, I think chocolate's kind of the dominant flavor for plum as well. So
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of what type of feedback we can give to improve a few things on like the clarity specifically. Obviously, I think is kind of centric here. So is that a transferring technique that we might want to hone in on, or is it just more patience?
Either more patience, or think about like if all of your beer can end up being too cloudy, think about your clarifying agents and think about what you're using. In fact, right now these days I'm researching and experimenting with a couple of different types of clarifying agents. I never used to, but I'm starting to feel like I want to try. And so I've been trying the last couple of batches to try different things to see what they look like. So try that. See what you can do with clarifying agents. I think time and patience just might be an issue here as well. Just give it another few days. Right? Give it another couple, 3-4 days. Let it kind of fully drop out, or crash cool it. You know, I don't know your system, but if you can, crash cool it. That'll knock stuff out really fast.
Yep.
So anyway, just some ideas about what you could do. I don't really think there's a recipe problem here.
Mm-hmm. Like
it's okay for an English brown to have a bit of a chocolate dominant characteristic. That's an interpretive thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I'm thinking about that, I would like that chocolate balanced off a little more, with some toffees, some caramels, some dried fruit characters, just to kind of balance it off. But I don't necessarily see the chocolate as a problem in and of itself. Just there's not enough else there.
I definitely get a lot of chocolate on both the taste and the nose, and I think it's more like the bitter dark chocolate almost is what I'm picking up. But I think I'm also picking up some like fresher grain. So I think if it did spend more time, it would mature a little bit. It would almost taste as if you've gone through and you've ground your grain and you've gone through the process, but it fully hasn't, like, I don't know if it's fully boiled or whatever the case is. It's not awful, like it's not an off-putting taste, but I think it does taste more junior, less mature than.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I get it, for sure.
Which again is one of the things about competition. Sometimes it's like, oh, it's not quite ready, but it's the deadline.
Right.
Okay, I'll do it anyway, and just hope that it goes for the best. So that happens. Yeah.
I would still crush it. Probably not appropriate for here, but.
Okay, we are on number 10, which is a Dunkelbaum 6C. So this person
They're getting
knows
into
what they're
they're
doing
getting in
with
their
the
categories.
DPCP. Wow, well done. Okay, expectation just went up, by the way. Toasted caramel Bach. Okay,
Again, great clarity.
that's pretty. Yeah.
Nice job.
Hey, now that I say that, he cut my pour in half. What's up with that? Back here, Sean.
You guys can fight this out after.
Nice tight bead. Little light brown head. Yeah, it's very nice.
I really enjoy the fragrance off of this.
Yeah, some nice mixtures of aromas here, hey? I guess we get chocolate and some really strong dark fruit.
We got that German yeast character coming into play
Yeah.
too, right? Like
Rich, there's a bit of a breadiness to it.
definitely,
Are there comments, Rob?
yeah. Say definitely
we
like
did
for
on a T-shirt.
what's that?
I would still crush it.
Say definitely like fermented on the cooler side, I would assume, because we're getting more of that like fruity character rather than some of the phenolics that you would get out of like a warm temperature with the German yeast strain.
That banana bready.
Yeah,
almost,
not
not
massive
white.
banana,
I
but
don't know.
like an ester profile more than a phenolic.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of a fun change of pace from
Yeah.
like 6 or 7 consecutive brown ales, right? Not that they were bad by any means, but
Well, I just remember a couple of years ago doing 27 Pilsners in a row. At the
Oh, gosh.
Oh, my God. Yeah, so, you get after a while.
did you take some time off from the Pilsners after that? Yeah.
Well, at the end, I was even just running out of words. It's like, how many ways can I describe, like, light, grainy malt?
Yeah.
See, Rob, maybe that should be a T-shirt.
So this was intriguing because I think I'm forced in this one to kind of keep in mind what the competition is.
Yeah.
Because I think we've all had appropriately gushing responses about the aroma. I find the flavor. If I'm just saying, oh yeah, it's a Bach, then I've got some concerns. But recognizing what we're doing here and they calling it a toasted caramel Bach, I'm going, okay, yeah, maybe, yeah. Because that's, I think, would have been my main critique, is it's got this toasty caramel note to it, right? Almost like, almost like taking oats and kind of roasting them up just to light sort of brownness. That's almost kind of what I get out of this. And as I say, normally in a bock, I would ding that as a flaw. But knowing what we're doing here, I go, well, maybe not. Maybe this is all right. So I don't know. What do you think?
I really love the fragrance. I get a little bit of a, I guess maybe a sharp or bitter note at the end, but I find it quite pleasant, and I think it might be because of the toasted caramels it's going for.
That's what I think it is. I
Like
think it's
that
less of a
burnt
bitterness
sugar?
and more than that kind of burnt kind of note at the end, which again in a bock I would call a flaw. But if it's like you think Special B, that's some of the flavors the Special brings to the table. So, Chris.
I love the aromatics. I'm taking my time with this one. It's
Yeah, I
intriguing,
like it.
right? It's a change of pace from all the browns too, right? But I was appreciating the clean fermentation on this one to start. But now I'm starting to realize, come back to like look for that Special B. Let's remind ourselves why we're here. So now I'm kind of looking at it with a different lens, and yeah, like those caramel notes, like they're soft. They're really just like an undertone to the yeast, so it's there. I would say, like palate wise, it's very pleasant. I don't know if it's just me where I'm at with tasting these beers, but I get maybe just a little bit of a soapy finish on it.
Yeah, I can
can
get that.
see that.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Okay. So I really like it again, but Sean did not pour me enough of it, so my evaluation will be incomplete
Well,
as I've run dry.
skill of good judges to be able to do it on one
Thank you,
sip.
Sean.
So I think if you think about a bock, right, you want it to have that nice breadiness.
Okay.
And this has more of a toasted brown bread. Like that's what it feels like. It's like you've toasted your bread rather than got a nice breadiness. It's more toasty than bready. And I think again, maybe that's okay given what we're doing here. It does throw it out of whack, I think, a little bit for a bock. But so anyway, my gut tells me to still keep it in the wings. See where it goes after we've tried the rest of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Agree with that. I gotta say, Bach is just like, I can probably count the number of Bachs I've drank in my life on one hand. Is also my struggle here. So like,
Okay.
I don't have much of a
Right.
benchmark to compare it against. I'm just like, appreciating good beer, and this is good
It
beer,
is-
obviously,
it is
right?
good beer.
But
Another crushable beer.
I think the last
Out there.
Bach I had was actually in Portugal.
Oh, wow.
Oh wow, nice.
6 years ago. So it's been a little while. Whoever this
We don't
was,
see, we don't
thank
see
you.
a lot of them around these parts, you know.
No.
I know. I was hosting a beer event last fall, where one of the beers I decided to pick for the event was Celebrator, the Doppelbock. And at the course of the event, I went, "Oh, I forgot how much I love this." This. So I promptly went and brewed myself one. It's like I forgot how much I love this style. Anyway,
That is also my favorite part of like the amateur home brewing competition scene is getting the inspiration from
Oh,
just trying great
gosh,
beers. It's like, yeah, I want to make that.
yeah. And I just gotta say, it turned out pretty well.
Yeah.
Keg's almost empty.
Okay, what are we on now? We're on number 11,
We are on number
a Munich Dunkel with vanilla and lactose.
Okay.
So another yeast-driven beer for me on the aromatics. I feel like unlike the last one, we're getting a warmer fermentation on this one, where more of those phenolics, more of that clove is coming out to play. I still do get the banana, the esters too. So this is actually really nicely balanced from like the yeast fermentation standpoint, where they checked off the boxes on both the esters and the phenolics.
And I almost wonder if that vanilla might be fooling our noses around those phenolics. Right? Like knowing that there's some vanilla in there, I kind of go like I'm not getting a ton of vanilla in the nose, which just makes me wonder. But I am getting these other phenolics, right? And I just wonder maybe it's masquerading in that way, which can happen.
I'm almost getting a bubblegum off the Nose.
I know, like the aroma is edging into Weizen character, right?
For sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
But again, I don't know how much of that is the vanilla playing with us. So
In terms of Special B on the aromatics, I'm not finding it just because like the yeast character is so prominent. But it's fun and complex, right?
what about the flavor?
Get that lactose, that sweetness up front right away.
I was gonna say
Lingers.
it's interestingly sweet. Like it's from the nose, and then on your palate. To me, it is a lot sweeter tasting than the smell that I'm getting off of it.
This is like a dessert beer to me.
100%.
Yeah, like
100%.
Tasty.
Where I went is this reminds me. I'm trying to remember the name of it now though. Of that Granville Island Winter Seasonal, the Lions,
Oh, yes.
Lions something. I can't remember the name, but that's what this reminds me of.
yep.
In that, so you're right. It's like a dessert beer. It's got that sweet vanilla and the lactose combining to make a very interesting. As I say, yeah, it reminds me of that. I wish I could remember. Is it Lions? No, it's not Lion. It's Lions something material. I can't remember now, but it's not Lions Gate.
Yeah, the Lions Winter Ale, right?
Yeah, everyone knows it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's Granville Island. That's what this reminds me of.
Without the chocolate. I don't get chocolate because
Yeah,
when
okay,
I
fair enough.
had Granville, it was
Yeah, fair enough.
big chocolate, but
So
not
this,
one.
I just,
Yeah.
that's where my brain went, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's got a lot of those characteristics to it. But then, like, the body's about the same, right? The sort of the level of sweetness is about the same. I think it's an interesting approach. I'm not getting a ton of dunkel, right? Like, I feel like, yeah, I'm not getting a nice, rich sort of dunkel character to this. Dunkel's like, and I guess part of this is dunkels are generally a fairly clean style, and this is it's got a lot going on. Yeah. So.
I think it's a really fun beer. Like I
Yeah, it's very
enjoy
fun.
the aromatics, the taste. It's got complexity to it. That sweetness for the right occasion is going to be something like craveable too. But in terms of the Special B, like the caramel, the red fruitiness, not there.
Okay.
It's just the other components are taking center stage.
Yeah, it's the vanilla and the lactose that are the stars of this beer, and so the Special B is playing. They're in the chorus line in the back. Okay. All right.
Creative though.
It is super creative.
Okay, we're getting into the Doppelbox. We have number 12 next, which has some comments. 7.1% ABV. Yay for us.
Perfect.
May have turned into more of a debacle at this point. We need
Hey, great name for a beer. I would name that beer that in a heartbeat. Debaclebach. I love that name. But that does make me a little nervous.
We might need some first aid over here.
Another style that I don't like. I don't remember the last time I had a Doppelbock. Like just there's probably one or two when you go to a store like Wine and Beyond, but average liquor store, not a chance, right?
Yep.
How often does an Alberta craft brewery make one of these?
Very rarely.
Not much.
Rare.
Alley Cat did one a few years ago. I'm trying to think of who else. Someone else did one recently. Who was that?
Okay.
Is it Hell's Basement?
So before you dive into that, if you don't
Yep.
mind, like talk to us about Doppelbock a little bit more, if you don't mind, because for me, if benefit only to me, it's like educate me a little bit on Doppelbock since I've got very limited.
Well, I mean, so
experience.
basically, in many ways, it's a bigger sister of Bock, and so you're still looking for that really clean German lager fermentation with a nice, rich, complex breadiness. Big, sort of relatively, sort of moderate, medium body, with not finishing cloying though. You want it sweet, kind of more upfront, and then you want it to dry out just a touch at the end. You could have some toastiness in there. Some dark fruits is not inappropriate, but as long as they don't get too big. And so yeah, mostly you just want that nice, rich, complex breadiness is what you're looking for in a really good Doppelbock. So,
Okay, well let's find out. So is that the yeast I'm getting on the nose here?
I get a yeasty character. I get a yeastiness out of it.
Phenolic character.
It's not coming across as in the nose anyway. It's not coming across as phenolic. It's coming across as yeasty.
Okay.
Like I'm kind of getting. It's almost like, you open up your. I guess these days it's your Escarpment Labs pack, and I'm getting that hit right of oh yeah right. So I don't know what that we'll see in the flavor where that transposes into, but so already I'm not really getting that sort of complex breadiness in the nose that I'm hoping for. Yeah, there's definitely Well, now as I take a second or third, that yeasty is starting to transform into a bit of a medicinal. But at the first whiff, it seems yeasty, but then it starts to feel it's starting to feel a little more medicinal. But again, let's see what the flavor says.
I think we've fermented too hot on this one.
I think there may also be something else going on too. I'm going to do this the way I would do it on a score sheet. So right up front, first hit, I get some very nice, rounded, bready, sweet notes that are quickly complemented with some dark fruit. And then it's in mid-palate where things start to go awry. So I wanted to do it that way because I wanted to get sort of the positive up front, that the very first hit is actually, oh, okay. And then mid-palate starts to go apart. And So there's obviously yeast byproduct, or sort of fermentation byproduct, coming out of this, but I'm also getting it's really hanging on in my linger. I'm getting a medicinal character to it. So now I'm starting to think infection. Like there's something in here. It's not clean. It's not finishing clean. Like it should. Like a good Doppelbock, despite the fact that it's heavy, relatively heavy as a style, you still want it to clean off your palate. This is not cleaning off my palate. Now I will say it's hiding the 7.1% pretty well, which is actually another mandatory requirement in a Doppelbock. So you should not be able to tell that it's 7%. You should not be able to, or 7 or 8%. You shouldn't be able to tell. So I'm not really getting a lot of that hot alcohol heat. But yeah, mostly for me, it's that there's a lingering phenol that I think mars the beer. The reason I'm saying it the way I'm saying is that I think there's potential under here. Right? I think clean up that problem, whatever that problem is, and there's probably some potential in this recipe.
Right.
Cool down your fermentation, figure out what got in there, so clean that beer up, and I think the recipe has some potential, I think.
Yep, agreed. And I got the same impression too, where that instant, like as soon as it hits the palate, you get some nice malt character, but it quickly dissipates, right? With those probably yeast flaws coming into play. So I think for me, the recommendation, like from experience, like this is under pitching as well too, where
Could be,
a higher
could be.
ABV beer, I think it's one to maybe look at increasing the pitch rate, monitoring those temperatures if you have the ability, because I think there's a good beer underneath here for sure.
Yeah, as I say, it's good recipe design. Hops seems in the right level. You want just enough hops to be balanced. I get that. So yeah, I think the recipe design's fine. I think it's more just execution at this point, which I think that happens to all of us.
Oh gosh, comments for me. Now, I don't like. It's not my favorite beer, but it's not the worst beer I've ever had. And I think for me, when I first smelled it, I didn't actually get a lot of fragrance off the nose. And I'm not sure if it's because the previous two beers that we've had were very super strong forward. So I don't know if that was my body playing tricks. And then there's a. I'm not quite sure the taste that I have afterwards. It's not unpleasant, but it's not super. It's not super descriptive of any one type of ingredient. I guess if I can, it seems kind of muted almost. But I wouldn't toss it out. I'd probably keep drinking this.
What was the expression again?
I still crush it.
Still crush it. I would still crush this. Wow. T-shirts next year.
Still not living quite up to the licorice dildo moment that we had previous years, but it's something.
I can't top that comment.
There's obviously a story in there.
Well, that was Marie's descriptor of one of the beers last year.
Yeah, I don't think I want to know the story about why that would come to their brain.
And unfortunately, she couldn't be here. We would have loved for her to have joined us. We invited her, but I think she's on a trip to Hawaii actually.
Oh,
today.
that's
Well, spring break.
Yeah,
That
right.
sounds fantastic.
Yeah, spring break. So of course she's there.
But we will do our best to bring her back next year. People, don't you worry.
Yeah, another one with so yeah. So this one's another Doppelbock. Yeah.
Pretty hazy.
This one's also got some clarity issues. Forms a nice head though.
Number 13.
Yep.
Lucky number 13. Yeah, I think for this one, I'm getting a lot bigger fragrances on the nose compared to the last. A lot of more dark fruits.
Very estery. Yeah.
I get a real maple syrup
Oh,
sweetness
I
out
can
of
see
it, which has me cocking my head a little bit. It's like, why would I get maple syrup in this? But
Yeah, I can
what I'm
get there
getting.
too. Maybe a little bit of red apple too, like on that red fruit.
There was not much of a description on this one. It's too bad.
I like it.
It
Makes us,
yeah, it's fun.
work our brains a little bit harder. Ooh, sweet.
Wow.
unfermented wort sweetness. I think this this puppy did not finish.
Yep.
Yeah, that's and I think maybe that's why I was getting a maple syrup kind of characteristic out of it. It's just it's unfermented wort. It's just not. It didn't finish. Again, maybe they rushed it, or underpitched, and
Yeah.
the yeast got too stressed. Beyond that, I think there's some esters in there. I think there's some potential for some breadiness underneath there. Dry that beer out a little bit more and just let it finish. I think, and I think we might be talking about. I'd be curious if they gave this thing, another week or so to ferment, a couple weeks of even just a couple weeks of fermenting. I wonder if we'd have a completely different beer on it.
I agree. I think we would totally. Yeah. Unfortunately, this one's just pretty obvious, right? Where it was either rust or that yeast just stalled out and didn't finish the job. But
Well, and again, just because it's so hazy, it's making me think rushed, right? Like, because
Yep.
if it got too stressed, it would have dropped out, right? It would have attenuated. It would have just dropped out of solution,
right.
And so you still would have had some clarity, but it still would have been really, really sweet. And so, because I've had that happen,
Right.
and where it just doesn't finish, and that's not what this seems like. This seems like there's still yeast in suspension. It's just not done.
This one pour okay when you have it?
Yeah.
It's probably like very fresh, right? Like I know a lot of brewers probably would have packaged this thing up in the last 48 hours, really. So I will caution this brewer, like there are a lot of unfermented sugars.
Yeah, I'd be careful
So
about
if
bottle
you
box,
did
yeah.
put these into bottles, you have to be very cautious. If it's still in a keg, then warm it back up and give it another couple weeks to see what happens.
Take the pressure off.
Take the pressure off, yeah. Or you can get a sputting valve. Natural carbonation might be fun
Well,
too,
there you
right? But yeah, just be cautious because this one just needed a little bit more time. But
Yeah.
maybe we'll get to taste it in the future. You never know.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, this might be actually if you still have the opportunity to keep fermenting it, this might be really ready to go for ABC.
There you go.
What I would say about it, what I did like is that the fragrance or the nose off of it did match the flavor. That I was sort of, because it smelled sweet and it tasted sweet, so I was like, perfect.
Number 14, a porter with a 6.7% malt bill
Wow.
with Special B. Okay, so this is essentially almost double the British Brown that
Yep.
we had earlier.
Yeah, although a bit of a bigger style, but yeah, I think again, this is actually because they've given us the actual percentage. It gives us a nice measuring point, right? To say, okay, we know 3.5 wasn't quite enough. What does about 6.5 look like? Right? So what about double? Just about double.
Okay. I'll be right back.
Okay. What do you get in the aroma?
I get a lot of dark fruit, not quite as dark as the last one. There is a little bit of nut, like a nutty, and there's something else in there that I'm not quite sure what I'm smelling.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I get some light chocolate to it.
Maybe that's
More of a milk chocolate than a
Yes,
dark chocolate.
yeah.
But yeah, I also get a little bit of nuttiness, a little bit of dark fruit.
Yeah, I think that is the other ingredient that I'm smelling is that milk chocolatey kind of.
Let's see how it goes into flavor. So, so some nice light chocolate at the front, combined with, I get some dark fruits. I get some plum. This is the first beer of the ones we've had where I get a note of plum character out of it, and middle kind of sharpens up a little bit with a touch of roastiness, some toastiness, which then transforms into a touch of roastiness. And so it finishes fairly balanced. I mean, it's still got some sweetness in it, but then the roastiness kind of gives you enough balance to dry out the back end. Linger, if anything, the linger might be a little too roasty for the style. But yeah, I think it's again, it's clean. I'm not tasting any problems. You've not had
late to
the
the
amount of
party.
time. I know you're a bit behind, but
Catching up.
yeah.
We feeling an English porter yeast on this?
Oh yeah, this feels very much like a English style porter to me. Yeah, definitely English hops. Like there's just there's an earthiness to the bitterness and not a sharp pininess or anything.
Yeah, I guess for knowing that this is double the grain bill concentration of Special B than one of the previous beers, I was expecting it to be more prominent, which I do not find actually in this beer. Like it's still like those really dark roastier malts first. I'm like there's no astringency or anything like unpleasant lingering, but I'm just like I'm not getting those caramelly notes that we saw so forward in some of the earlier browns when it was really just left alone to.
And so that might be a stylistic problem, right? Is that even though they doubled the amount of Special B, they've also added so many other flavors. It's just such a bigger style that even doubling your Special B isn't sufficient. And so I think what I start to think about when I do this is it might be that porter's just not the right place to put your Special B. That your Special B is just going to get lost. That there's other ways to get that character, some of the caramel notes and the toasty notes. And chocolatey notes. There's other ways to get there without having to use up your Special B to use it. I mean, if it's all you got, then go ahead. But obviously, it's not going to give you any particular Special B character. Because I'm not getting a ton of it, even though I think it's a solid porter.
Yeah.
As I say, my only main critique of that is trying to dial down that roasty finish, and then I really think you found the sweet spot.
Maybe just substitute that with something a little lighter, like maybe in like the 60 to 80 lava bond range.
Well, I think a touch of light chocolate malt wouldn't be inappropriate. I think it's probably just how much they've added, right? And I wouldn't go black patent, right? I would stick with chocolate, especially on the lighter end of the chocolate. I think more it might be how much did they put in, I think is the question. But often I personally have had personal experience, positive work with importers is to use carafa.
Okay.
Because you get rid of some of that husky harshness.
Yep.
And so you still can get some of that lightly burnt. But I would never use it in a porter in very high proportions, but I've had good luck with carafa in my porters.
Okay. Yeah. Again, I really like the beer too. So in order to just like feedback for the brewer, I think what would take this up even another notch is just more of a malt backbone, like with the base malts, maybe experimenting with some Vienna as a combination of your base malt that you're using. The pale ale malt from Hammer is fantastic. Like that's become my default replacement now for Maris Otter. So if you haven't tried that, hopefully you got the chance to order some of it on the upcoming bulk buy. but really well made beer.
Yeah, solid porter.
Good job.
Really good.
Yeah. Again, cleanly brewed. No fermentation issues there. No, sanitation issues.
We gotta show off these pours. Like I gotta say, like
Sean doesn't like me all that
really
much.
consistent. But I don't know. You looked after the guy that mattered the most, so appreciate that. I'll invite you back next year. All right, what are we on to? Number 15. We've got 4 to go. Scottish export. Okay, the only Scottish export.
Yeah.
Again, not a style that you have the opportunity to drink very often.
No, yeah, almost
right?
nobody makes a Scottish
Almost
export.
nobody. All right, so if you don't mind, maybe just some background or some insights into a Scottish export for those of us that don't know what it is.
Yeah, so I mean, the Scottish ales all kind of come up in gravity. They all have similar profiles. It's all about the intensity as you go up, right? And so I think the Scottish export's kind of, it's underneath the wee heavy, right? So you're looking for dark caramels, toffees, richness, right? You're not looking for a lot of hop character in it because that was the whole history of these beers. Is hops came from England and they were expensive, and the Scottish hate the English, and so then they came up with a whole different way of brewing. So yeah, you're just kind of looking for nice richness, but not too cloying, right? A bit of in an export. I wouldn't find just a touch of roast being out of place necessarily. Yeah, and so even like some interpretations would allow for a little bit of a peatiness. I think you save that more for your wee heavies on the whole, but again, I think a touch of it wouldn't necessarily be a problem.
Okay. We're a little hazy on this one again as well too. Is that appropriate to this style? Are you okay?
No,
with
it should be.
No?
I mean, this is too hazy for style.
Okay.
Again, it should be clear. But no homebrew clear. But this is hazier than homebrew clear. Yeah.
Smells very good. I'm surprised by this, like aromatics. Like this actually reminds me a lot of those like dunkels that we were smelling as well too. Like it almost tricked me that there was a German yeast in here.
The other thing about Scottish beers is you tend to even though they're ales, you tend to find them a touch colder.
Okay.
So they're a touch cleaner than say their British equivalent.
I think I'm getting like a toffee banana-esque.
There's a lot of banana in here, which I would not normally associate with a Scottish export. Definitely toffee, a little bit of toast. Finish is about right, moderate sweetness, not too cloying. Body is about right. But yeah, it's the banana. The banana hangs in from the beginning right through to the end, which fermentation issue, stressed yeast. I don't
Or
know
just the selection of yeast?
and that's the thing. I don't know what yeast
Yeah.
that was where I was about to go. I don't know what yeast they use, so maybe they've got a higher ester producing yeast style. So yeah, it's that would be I think that's the main issue here. And again, I think if I think about the Special B, there's some of it in there. I get it. I can see that it's there,
Yeah.
but it's not really shining through the way it could. Right? Yeah.
Well, I think this fits in with the German beers that we were just drinking, right? Like if if you told us this was a German style, it would have been like probably a different look at this beer, right? But
Yeah.
I guess when we're looking for that Scottish export element, because we are very familiar with it, some of us, it changes the experience, right?
Right. Okay.
It really does remind me of
Smells
those
good.
little Runts banana candies.
Yeah. Yeah, like just way too much banana for style. Like way too much. It's distracting. Like and yeah.
Okay. We are up to beer number 16, 34B, Belgian. Oh, it's cut off on my screen here.
I think it's a Belgian wee heavy.
It is.
Belgian wee heavy. Okay.
So it says wee heavy grist with a non-phenolic Belgian yeast, which is I'm trying to get my head around a non-phenolic Belgian yeast, because that's the whole point about Belgian yeasts is that they're phenolic. So yeah,
Okay. This is what the Iron Brewer is all about. Creativity.
Right.
Right? All right. Looks good. Nice clarity on this beer.
Yeah.
Good head retention. Nice color.
yeah, good color, nice, really nice color.
Very rich aromatics.
Like it looks like a wee heavy. Period. Like it's got a nice wee heavy kind of look to it. The head is exactly what I'm looking for. Yeah, it's really interesting. Aroma gives me some dark caramel, a little burnt toffee, but then just a hint of that Belgian phenol. Just a hint. Like if not, it's to me a touch of clove.
I get the
some
yeast a
dark-
lot more on the palate. Have you tasted it
I haven't
yet?
tasted it yet.
Okay.
No, I'm still on aroma.
Okay.
Oh wow. I'm intrigued by this beer.
It's pretty fun, isn't
It's
it?
interesting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really interesting. I mean, it's kind of doing what it says it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like so if we break it down, so the wee heavy, right? Some rich caramel notes, a little bit of burnt toffee, some dark fruits, just a hint of roastiness, which is totally fine in a wee heavy. I can also convince myself there's a touch of smokiness in it, but that could also just be the phenols. And then if I think about Belgian, it's just adding this slightly kind of earthy, clovey, smoky, phenolic character to it, right? And,
Okay.
and I'm always reminded of what's one of my, I experienced it in Belgium. You can't get it in North America. I was in Belgium once and had a Belgian stout called Hercule. And it really shifted, this was 15 years ago or something, and it just shifted my brain about, right, Belgian beers just can be more than just the Abbey beers, right? Like you can do all sorts of things and add a Belgian yeast to it and kind of create a whole new creature. I kind of feel like that's what they've done here. They've created a new creature that is not fully wee heavy and it's not fully Belgian. It's kind of in between, which is exactly what a 34B should be. So I'm going to go out and say this gets to go forward to our last sort of final round. I think it's because I'm getting, it's an interesting beer. There's some interesting flavor combinations to it, but then I also think the Special B is in there, right? I'm getting those dark caramels. I'm getting the toffees. I'm getting that dark fruit, right? As the linger, I'm starting to get almost a plum dark cherry kind of note to it as well.
Yeah,
So
no doubt about it.
yeah, interesting beer. I'm
Very
curious.
interesting.
I'm almost tempted to find out who it is and ask them for the recipe.
Yeah, it is fun, for sure. What I like too, I mean, again, the aromatics are really, really, really pleasant and intense as well too. But with a lot of those like really sweet, intense aromatics, sometimes you get a beer that's like really too like cloying or overly sweet on the finish, and like this Belgian yeast dries it out.
That's what
right?
I think. That's the miracle of this, right? And I
Yeah.
think if it was just a straight wee heavy, I would probably ding it for finishing a little too light, finishing a little too dry. But again, because it's this weird hybrid, it's like, well, of course the Belgian yeast is going to dry that out a little more, and so I'm expecting that. So, yeah, interesting. Interesting beer.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that one. Thank you.
Okay, only 2 to go.
That's
Come
wild.
by quick. That is wild. We've got an oatmeal stout.
Okay.
Excellent.
My favorite styles to brew.
Is it?
Yeah. And it's also that recipe is also my most award-winning recipe.
Oh,
I've
wow.
won more medals with the oatmeal stout than any of my other beer.
Okay.
Good to know.
What's the secret to success? Nobody's watching. Come on, you gotta have like some tips or tricks for us.
Don't scrimp on the oats.
Don't script on the
Ah,
Lots of oats.
lots of oats.
Yeah.
Is that for mouthfeel or the flavor?
Mouthfeel.
Mouthfeel?
It's all about mouthfeel.
Okay.
It creates a silkiness that I really like, and that really kind of draws out,
Okay.
and that which creates a really solid base for the other flavors to come from.
Okay. Well,
Okay, so we'll try this one. Well, can't see through it. That's a good sign.
good sign.
You can't see through it. It's a stout, man. You can't see through it.
Yep.
That's what you want.
But if you thin it out, the clarity actually looks.
Well, no, and that's good technique. That's exactly what you want to do then, right? There you can't see through it, which you don't want to be able to. But then if you kind of do that, you go, yeah, there's clear beer in there. Yeah.
Almost get a smokiness on this one.
Really?
Like I think it. Well, I get a little bit of a bitterness off the end of the taste. Like I'm getting I guess, a smoky note. I'm not getting a lot of any of the dried nut or any of the fruit characteristics off of the Special B.
Chris?
Yeah, I see what you're saying about maybe like the smoky roasty element. It's kind of, I guess, expected. I do get like caramel for one of the more dominant like aromatics. I think it smells good.
It does. It certainly does.
Well, I differ a bit on this one, I think. And it's, I've been holding my tongue because I've been wanting to see what happens as I go back to the aroma. But it's not going away. I'm picking up, in the aroma in particular, I'm picking up a distinct vegetal character that I find quite off-putting. It doesn't come through in the flavor quite so much. I can kind of catch it at the back end. But it doesn't seem to mar the flavor as much for me as it's completely trashing the aroma for me. Like I can kind of work past it and get some interesting cocoa and some dark fruit. But yeah, it's like, and that's why I've been holding. I've been kind of going back to it, saying, well, maybe this will blow off. Like, but for me, it's not blowing off. Like I'm just, I keep going back and I keep getting it. Which is a good example. This is actually a good moment to sort of talk about. This happens where one judge will taste or sense something, and the other judges at the panel won't. And it doesn't mean the one judge is wrong, and it doesn't mean the other two judges are wrong, right? It just is what happens sometimes. Our brains, this is an imperfect science because it's a combination of what we're olfactory and brain. And so our brain goes to something, there's something in there that I picked up that my brain locked in on. You know, if we had 20 people tasting it, maybe we could resolve that in terms of, is it really there, or is it just something that I'm detecting? We don't know. So brewer, take that for what it is, that there's something I'm picking up that they're not. I think on the whole, though, I think if I get past that, there's some nice elements here. I don't think it has the silkiness that I'm looking for in an oatmeal stout. The black malt is a little harsh, like the roastiness is a bit harsh, but not unfixable. I think just kind of dial that back a little bit. It needs a little bit more of a bottom end. And that's, I mean, in ways, I kind of thought if you were going to add the Special B, you'd have more bottom end. You'd have more of that nice, rich, malty backbone to hold this up, and I'm not finding it there. I'm wondering if it's over attenuated more than you planned it to be. Again, I don't know. I haven't seen your stats, but that's just in tasting it. I wonder if it's a bit over attenuated, and that's why we've lost that richness that I'm kind of would be looking for, both from the oatmeal silkiness and the Special B qualities. So, yeah.
Okay. Any closing comments?
No. But it's still quite drinkable.
Still crush it.
Yes, I would still crush this. I find it interesting about the vegetal. That's one of the characteristics when I've done any of the tastings that, for whatever reason, my palate will not pick up on that.
That's fair. And it's one of those for me where I've just learned that if I think I'm getting it, I gotta name it because it's like, yeah, it's just kind of there for me.
I got a hint of it too.
Okay.
You're not the only one, Jason.
All right, last but not least, we have a Belgian dark ale, kung fu fighting style, with hints of workout clothing.
Okay.
Did Gary make this beer?
Okay.
I don't think he did.
I don't know what to do with that
So-
in terms of
What?
commentary.
So what happens if I don't pick up notes of sweaty clothing?
Yeah. Well, I don't even know what kung fu fighting is supposed to taste like, but that's okay. So a little bit of haze, but not too bad. Colors, well, yeah, color's fine.
What is that flavor? It caught me off guard.
Getting diacetyl, maybe? I don't know.
What's
I'm
diacetyl
getting
for me?
not quite. It's a slight buttery. Well, to my palate. But I also love buttery popcorn. Just in case anybody's wondering.
Seems the reason I'm chuckling is because it tastes like sweat socks.
Sweat socks?
I mean, that would
Apparently
be a
the
perfect
brewer thought the
description.
same thing, and they wanted you to taste that. Jason?
Yeah, there's also a dustiness in it that I attribute to some oxidation. There are some Belgian phenols in there. They're not the right. They don't feel like the clean phenols. They don't feel like, that nice kind of, peppery, clovey, dirty, sort of sort of musty kind of notes you can get out of it. It feels ashier than that, and yeah, just lots of phenols. I'm just not sure they're all right. So I don't know if that's. I'm trying to think about what went wrong here. Could be age. Could be that it's just old and it's falling apart. That seems a bit unlikely for this competition.
No,
but if
these should be young beers, right?
but in blind, I would say to myself, I could see a Belgian ale going in this direction as it gets too old. So that would be one thing that I would go to. But given that, it's probably fresh. Yeast health, stressed yeast. It's potentially underpinching. I don't know how strong the beer is, but
I mean, it feels like it's actually like pretty low table strength, almost
yeah,
like barely
it doesn't
above table
seem
strength.
seem big. But
Right.
I'm trying to think about what throws off the phenols that way. I guess the other potential is just there's an infection in there as well. That's also contributing some of these flavor profiles. I'm not getting a strong infection kind of flavor profile, but it's possible. I mean, that's the thing with Belgian beers is that the phenols go in weird directions sometimes. So, and again, to think about Special B, this is kind of the natural home of Special B, and yet I don't think I'm getting enough of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty light beer overall,
Mm-hmm.
right?
It is,
And I think that's
Yeah.
what I was hoping for more of when this was last on the list. I wanted like a big characterful beer, right? And I think, what we could do just with the ingredients or some of the adjuncts to try to kick it up a notch. But I mean, the Belgian yeast characters, the malt is just kind of tame, I would call it.
Yep. Yeah. That's
fair.
that's exactly the right descriptor for the malt. Is it's just a little too tame. It's present but not, and that's what Special B is about. It's supposed to make it pop a bit more, and that's why it's so perfect for Belgian. So I'm surprised actually that we've only got 1.5 Belgian styles in when the key ingredient is known for Belgian styles.
Right.
So it's interesting that people wanted to try it in different ways, which I think is cool. But I personally thought, we should see a fair number of Belgians here today, and we didn't.
I think
So-
timeliness is the key part too, right? 'Cause
Yeah, it's true. They take a little longer to do, and that's fair too. Is that you're trying to push it out, so it's easier to push out
especially the big beers too, right? Like hard to really I guess perfect a high ABV beer in like a 45, 60 day time period.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So-
So that would be, I get that, that's part of the calculation, so.
But for those of you that tried, kudos to you.
Yeah, totally.
Salute you.
Totally. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, you think you take the world's best chefs and you put them on a television show where they've got to cook something in 20 minutes, right? It's not always going to be their best work. They're going to figure out how to make it work, right? So from my calculation, we've got 4 that we said we would come back round to.
Which numbers were those? I did circle 5. As
Oh, did you circle a
standing
fifth
out.
one?
But
Okay, which one
let's
did
just
you
see
have?
which
Maybe I
one-
missed.
Okay, so which did you have?
So I have 3,
Yep.
8, 10, and 16.
Okay. So
What do you have that I don't?
I circled 5 as well too as being one of the,
The London brownish. Okay.
yeah, so-
yeah, I'm fine with that.
For me, those were the top 5.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So, we didn't talk, we should have talked about this. This process. Ideally now we would get all 5 at the same time. I don't know if you've got the glassware for that though. Because then we can actually kind of go across them, right? Mm-hmm. But we should have talked about this before we started the show, but.
Okay. I'm sure, because we only need another. Okay, I can figure it out. They won't be the prettiest glasses.
That's okay.
It's okay.
It's just my 2 now.
No, that's fine. I'll get some clean ones.
Commercial break.
Yeah, right.
Are there any good comments on there, Rob? Nothing they've always wondered about. Now's the time to ask us stuff.
There's been a lot of activity in the chat logs, but
That's fair.
they did like the taste like sweat socks comment.
Yeah, which I try not to be too. I'm reluctant to do those kinds of adjectives because and I would never write it down. I don't think. I think I would find a different way to describe it.
2 Iron Brews ago, mine tastes like cheesy wet socks.
Oh, yeah,
There you go.
that's right. That's
There you
right.
go.
Yeah, it wasn't a true diacetyl taste. Like normally I'll do the VDK test for Sean because I'm like, oh, I love the buttery butterscotch, so it doesn't matter even if it's not style. I was like, oh, I would love that. But I don't know if it was off the nose of the last one that I sort of got like almost like a muted buttery
Yeah, I get that.
sense, and then kind of tricked my palate. But
Yeah, I'm not diacetyl blind, but diacetyl has to be pretty high for me, and I find I start detecting it first in mouthfeel before I start getting it in flavor and aroma. That's just how I've learned that I get a kind of a slickness, and so I look for the slickness first. So I didn't really get the slickness, but again, I'm 100% willing to acknowledge that it could be there, and I'm just not. I'm a little.
Oh, gosh.
I lacked a little sensitivity to it. So.
it's totally fair. It's like anything vegetal I have. I'm like, excellent. In case anybody's wondering, we're just working on glassware.
I threw him a curve. Just thinking about judges disagreeing. I remember I was judging a panel at the Canadian Brewing Awards last year. And we were doing English pale ales.
Oh, wow.
We were going along fine, the 3 of us, mostly in alignment. And then we hit this one beer where instantly I'm like, peanut butter. I just get peanut butter. And they're like, no. Like, no, we don't get peanut butter. And so we talk it through for a few minutes, and it's like, no, I'm serious. And I wouldn't back down because it was just so obvious. It's like, no, there is peanut butter in this beer. I taste peanut butter. I mean, it doesn't mean there was peanut butter because I
Right.
tasted it. So we brought someone else over,
Oh, gosh.
and not because we were angry or anything. We were just like, kind of, what's going on here that you're getting this really strong, intense flavor, and we're not. Handed it to someone who didn't tell them anything, and they went, peanut butter. Put it down and walked away.
Oh, no. That's
Pretty good.
But I mean, I'm telling the story because that's kind of what happens, right? Like 3 experienced judges, and 2 didn't pick it up. 1 did. Doesn't mean they were wrong. But just because the 4th person found it doesn't mean I was right. Like, it's just, that's the whole point. Is it's just kind of, you pick up something, you interpret a flavor profile, your brain locks in on, well, if it's this particular compound physically, my brain locks it into peanut butter. Maybe their brain locks it into something else. Then I can't remember what they described it as anymore. So
3.
this is 3. Okay. This is 3 and 5.
This is
No, it's just 3.
just
This is just 3.
That's beer number 3.
that's
it's
gonna
the
be
amber?
beer number 3. And that was our bourbon soaked pecans and dark maple syrup additions.
Hard not to applaud creativity points.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Do you ever find when you're judging that you do run into a lot of the same sort of judges, and so you know, like I guess, the different profiles that each of you have?
Well, certainly around town, and certainly kind of in regional competitions. When I've done the national competitions, usually that's what I found. Like my very first time doing the Canadian Brewing Awards, I found there was very much a regional difference
Oh wow.
because I was dealing with a lot of Ontario judges because it was in Ontario,
Right.
so naturally, and there was just it's not even that yeah, there was some subtle palate differences, right, in terms of expectations of a beer. It's not like we were tasting different things, or they were, they were better judges, or I was better judge,
This
or
is
whatever.
5.
It was just a slightly,
We're just going in order, right? Okay.
yeah. And it was just an interesting regional difference, and so that's mostly what I've noticed.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, I think we'll start going.
yeah, we might as well. Yeah,
So for the brewers out there that are still with us, we have cracked into your second bottle now. So this is a brand new bottle. So hopefully, hopefully it was consistent and as good as the first one, if not maybe better. But we do have a fresh batch of beer here, so it's not a stale bottle that's been sitting there for 2 hours. And are we gonna just start in the same order? Or?
yeah, we might as well. It's simpler, and so what I would say this time, instead of I think what we do. This is why I sort of suggest getting them all out at once, because then it's just like you get them all side by side, you taste them, and then we don't have to describe them anymore because we've already done that, and so it's just more like
This is 8.
which one do you think
Yeah.
is the most
8.
like where do you think you should be, right? And so often when we get down to 5 in a best of show, we'll just get everybody to kind of pick their top 3 or pick their top 1. In this case, we're looking for 1, so maybe we pick a top 2 and
What's up,
see
Randy?
if we've got some consensus.
Number 10.
10.
10.
All right. So it's obvious we have 5 stellar beers coming up next, but we have to be diligent in picking a Special B star.
That's
out of
right.
the
All
mix.
right.
And this is probably where we lean in more on is this shining Special B through, I think.
I think
Given
so.
that that's the special ingredient. So
That's the first thing I'm going to look for now.
Yeah.
Going to these.
see, that's what doing it side by side is kind of helpful, right? Because these beers were 10, 15, 20 minutes apart.
Mm-hmm.
Ten. What is the
And
last?
16 is the last one. It's just amazing with the clarity.
Look at all 4 of them, right? So far. Yeah. Well, and the color similarity at this point is really quite, which I guess would make sense given you're adding Special B. You're just automatically going to get this extra richness in terms of the color. But
So I think what we'll try to do in your normal fashion, we'll try to eliminate one in 5th place. If we have consensus on it, once we get to that point.
We could try. I mean,
Okay.
I think at this point we'll see if there's an obvious one that.
Or you want to select top 3 from each person and see if there's consistency there.
That's kind of what I wonder when you're down to the last 5. Because you bet rather than kick out, trying to see if there's ones that stand out.
It's very difficult.
It really is.
It's a job that somebody has to do, though.
They say, "Welcome to my world." Best of Show is one of the most fun, but also one of the most difficult. Okay, one more go through.
This is where I wish our audience could, sneak a taste with us, right? Gotta learn.
I just made a comment. Maybe next year we should have like extra 5, the best 5. We have a contest and 5 people in the audience get to have one at home and taste with us.
Well, in all seriousness, I'm going to encourage absolutely everybody that participated to bring their beer to the next meeting. That's not till the 7th, I think, right? So we're a little ways away still. But now that you've heard about them, you want to obviously experience them, especially our top 5 here today. So hopefully everybody can make it out. It is the first Monday of April, which will be, I believe, the 7th, right, Rob?
7th, correct.
My first round to go through was not decisive.
It's not, is it?
Gotta get that mic working
It's
again.
really hard when they're
Tom,
all
I'm working.
fantastic.
I feel like I almost have to just focus on aromatics alone.
Yeah.
Separate some of these. That helps. I feel like the odd beer out for me on aromatics alone is the second beer, the London Brown.
Yeah.
It just, the others are consistent. That's the great part about this, right? Is we are seeing that specialty component come through in all of them. But the second one is just, it's unique in its aromatics. And I don't know if that's because it's just more of something else than Special B. I can't quite put my finger on it, but.
Well, that was on my list to kick out.
Mine as well. Still a delicious beer.
Oh, that's the fun part of it being
That's
best of
the
show is
problem.
you're competing against good beers, and that's what also makes it hard. So yeah, I would argue that we toss that one. I think.
Not toss, that we
Well, no, that we
release.
we kick it out. Yeah.
Release, go to your.
I'm gonna also argue that number 3, our bourbon soaked pecans one, in my argument for why to push it out, is that it's wonderfully creative and a brilliant beer, but there's, at the end of the day, Special B is not the star. It's a supporting role, which is okay, right, as a beer. But if I'm thinking about what we have left here, I feel like these 3 exhibit Special B in a much more open way than this one does, because it's giving us this interesting kind of, candied pecan, kind of other kind of flavor. And so I think that just for me is like, these 3 just stand out more in terms of if I'm thinking Special B. So that would be my argument. I'm happy to hear counter arguments about that though.
I cannot argue with that.
I
Who can
cannot as well. Like, I think this is a great dessert beer. I would love to have this with like sitting out, having ice cream and stuff. But I'm not getting like necessarily like you're saying like just the Special B. I'm picking up on the maple and everything else. So.
Which what happens, this is just one of those consequences of creating a complex, interesting beer that has a lot of flavors for us to attach ourselves to. But then when we have to do this kind of like picking process, it actually ends up being a detraction because it's like, oh, well, it's a lovely beer, it's fantastic. But these ones, and I think that's kind of where we're at. So I guess like if we're in agreement of the last three, then maybe the best option is to sort of see which people think is their first. And see if there's a consensus, and if then there isn't, we'll work it through.
Let me go back to them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Okay.
It might be good to go back to them now.
Okay, I have my third place beer.
Okay, yeah, we can do it that way too. Yep.
That works.
What's your third place beer?
My third place beer is number 10,
Yeah.
the Dunkelsbach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have, again, fantastic beer, but it doesn't have the same level of, the word that's coming into my head right now is grace as the other two. I think it kind of hits the toasted note really hard. And while the other characters, I think the other two just have a little more sort of, finesse is not the right word, but like they just have a more of a well presented package. So yeah, I'm up for that.
Yeah.
Do you have any struggles with that?
I do.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Down to 2.
Oh.
Okay, so our finalists are the British Brown Ale, number 8,
Yep.
right?
That is correct.
And number 16, the
Yes.
unique Belgian Wee Heavy.
Yeah.
Okay. Two very, very different beers, right? That's the fun part of this, too. Different, but similar.
Yeah.
I think what I like about the British Brown is it's super well balanced. It seems like it should be a simple beer, but it's surprisingly complex. And I think what I love about, which is not helping us any, about the Belgian Wee Heavy, it's so unique, but it's also so well balanced.
Okay.
And I think that's what I'm
So-
struggling between the more simplistic or the more complex, I guess.
So you're not stuck to this, but if you
No.
were forced to choose in this moment,
Yes.
obviously you're allowed to change your mind, but in this moment, what would you pick?
I think I would go with the British Brown, but
Okay.
my palate naturally I like less sweet things.
Okay.
Perfect. So this is going to be great because I'm on the other side of that. I agree with
I
everything
love
that you just said, but this does come down to a bit of preference, right? For me,
100%.
like I love those bigger, more complex, harder to make, like sweet, that sweetness without coming off cloying. So like I appreciate the richness of that Wee Heavy. And absolutely, that brown ale is one of the best I've ever had. But if it's picking one or the other, for me, it's personal preference. So I'm on the Wee Heavy. So that's why we've got our special guest here who gets to be the tiebreaker and the ultimate decision maker.
Although generally we try and go by consensus, but we don't have to.
Not today.
Yeah, not today, but that is just to give people insights into the judging tables. Like we do try and go by consensus at the best of show. We want to make sure everyone feels comfortable with the final decision. And so this is how I'll preface this. not only do I agree with both of you, I think you've actually both identified the dilemma in this particular choice. And so I found even my own brain saying, this brown is the natural environment for Special B. This is how it's found in the wild, right? Like this is where you put it, right? And they've done a remarkably great job with it, right? It's like, yeah, this is how you're supposed to use Special B, and they've done a great job of doing it. This one brings in an element of creativity, right? Where you wouldn't necessarily use Special B, you wouldn't necessarily use Special B in a wee heavy, but because they kind of made it a hybrid, they kind of they opened the door to Special B, and it works the way they do it. And so really the dilemma is, do we honor the really nailing Special B in the way it's supposed to be? Or do we honor the creativity of being able to find a new way to use Special B and make it work? That is the nature. That's, I think, what you two articulated. You articulated the nature of the dilemma, and that is where my brain has been going in the dilemma. And I think where I ever so slightly lean is with the wee heavy. I just think the extra level of creativity that it took to actually think of something new, think of something original, and then execute, I think is that slight extra push. But I want to be really clear to whoever the brewer of this one was, you nailed it. Like, you just really have figured out how to use, you got it the right proportion, the right supporting cast, that you really sort of brought that home really well. So that's where my vote goes. If there's a strong feeling from the
I'm
person who's
not
on the
opposed.
outside of that vote,
I am not opposed.
Okay.
They were both fantastic.
well, then we have a winner.
Amazing. And what I like about that too is it's like that's the spirit of homebrewing, right? Is to take some risks, to maybe sometimes use some ingredients that you just you need to use up too, right? And to get creative with it. So
Yeah. I think if this were a commercial competition, I might have even gone the other way and said, no, they've just really nailed how you're supposed to do this, right? But I think it's a homebrew competition. It's a particular Iron Brewer. It's about creativity and imagination, and so I think this hits the spirit of the competition.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, do you have who is our winner that we just selected?
Just to confirm, we're looking at the Wee Heavy
Correct.
34B.
Yep.
That'd be Dustin Priest.
Dustin Priest. Wow.
All
Well
right.
done, Dustin.
Well done, Dustin.
And let's give some.
Yeah, we should give. Yeah, I'm
acknowledgement
curious about who
to
the
our-
second place
our
person is. Yeah.
acknowledgement
Yeah,
viewers as well
what
too.
was the number on that one?
Number 8.
Number 8 was Dave and Young Moore.
Okay, well done.
Great.
And third place we had selected
Oh, I forgot
number
already.
10.
10
Yep.
was Neil McPherson.
Nice job, Neil. Fourth place we had.
Well, fourth and fifth we kind of kicked out at the same time.
Right.
So.
But number 3 was that unique bourbon
At
pizza.
Amber Ale, that was Dallas Jensen.
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
And then the 5.
number
Number
5,
5 was yours truly, Rob Taylor.
Ah!
Good job,
defending
Rob.
champ.
Not 2 years in a row, sorry.
Honorable mention. Okay.
Yeah.
Well done to everybody. That was a ton of fun. Hope you enjoyed us enjoying your beers, and hopefully the feedback was useful as well too. Always a pleasure to have Jason Foster. Just honestly, a encyclopedia of knowledge and the type of person that wants to share that and help others appreciate it as well too. So it means a lot to us that you came out, and hopefully we can do it again in the future.
Oh, I'd love to. This is fun. Yeah. Thanks for
Okay.
having me.
All right.
Okay.
See you later.